guys, gals, and fellow gender non-conforming pals. Welcome back. My name's C28, and it's time for this episode of Synthetic Design. In this episode, I'm going to be going over the very basics of synthesis, how it works, so you can learn at home how to do synthesis stuff yourself. So, let's get started with it, shall we? I will start by syncing up with Logic here so we can have this session synced up and you have pure, good, beautiful audio. Dang, hiccups. That's so unfortunate. Yeah, that's probably going to be an issue for this episode, but I'll try to cut them out every time it happens. Yeah. So, dang it. Cool. So now we're synced up. So let's get started. So the very first thing we're going to talk about are oscillators. Oscillators here are the origin of your sound. So if I have one oscillator on here with the mixer, which is how on the Moog Matriarch you control the levels of your oscillators. Oscillator 1 here is at 100% volume, and it makes a sound that sounds like this. Pretty fun. Now, this can be changed by changing the waveform. Almost any synthesizer will let you change the waveform of your oscillator to whatever waveforms are available. Dang it. Dang it. Typically, you'll have about maybe 2 to 5 options is what I've seen. So, in this case, we have this triangle wave here, which has some pretty smooth harmonics. We can also change that to a square wave, which is about the opposite. It's going to give you some of the harshest harmonics. Then you can go somewhere between with a saw wave. And then we finally have something here called a pulse width wave. Now what a pulse width wave does is it takes a square wave and I'll explain why I did that patch, and it pushes the square from one side to another. So basically you can think of it like this. If I have an up part and then a down part, I'm pushing that down part over this way. So let's see what that sounds like. And what I've done here, just because of the way the Matriarch works, it is a patchable synth. I have to patch in to control this parameter of the pulse width modulation. So you can see I can choose what kind of waveform I want to use. So I can use this very nasally pulse width. Or I can choose something a little bit more relaxed. So that's pretty fun. Now let's move on to the next section here. So we know oscillators, right? You can have oscillators. You can add multiple oscillators together now. So now we have 2 oscillators. We have our pulse width wave and a square wave. Let's change one of these here. We'll change the first one to a saw wave. And now we have a saw and a square together. Now what's fun is, just from the oscillator section alone, we can detune these and make them act a little bit differently. Ignore that. That literally just does nothing for us. I just wanted it to be up top. Aesthetics, you know? So, watch this. This frequency knob acts as what's also called a detune knob, and it will detune your sound by a certain amount of cents or semitones. In this case, it operates on sense. Oh my goodness, I'm so fed up with these hiccups. That sucks. You know, if only the diaphragm just didn't strain, that would suck. So can see that happen there. Now, another fun thing you can do with the change here of the frequency of your second oscillator, you can actually sync them together. And what that does now is the peaks of your, how do you explain it? So you see how you have a saw wave right here? I'll blow up a picture of a saw wave. So you see that saw wave. Imagine that stacked, or actually it works the other way. So you have a saw wave, and then you have a square wave. Imagine your square wave is stacked perfectly where the peaks match up with the peaks of the saw wave. Now, if you compress it, it's not necessarily just shifting it, but it shifts it within each cycle. So it still matches with the cycle with a different ratio. So you get a sound that sounds like this. Which is very fun. And I can push the octave up here and make that a little bit more intense. So that's fun. Now, of course, you can have fun all day with just changing these around, and I can sync all these up and move them around in places and get different oscillators set up in different ways, and now I get something that sounds like this. Oh, I need to turn these on. So that's cool. But let's keep it simple. Just one oscillator. So we're just going to keep with oscillator 1, which is this one here. And the rest basically don't matter. We'll reset them, but they're turned off here, so they won't do anything no matter what they're set to here. Boom. Cool. So we'll keep that little saw wave. So next up on the importance list are your filters. So typically, since we'll have one filter, but in this case you have two filters built into this beautiful machine. But we're going to act as though it's just one for now. So we'll keep spacing at 0 there, so the filters are in unison. And now, right here, it's indicating that it's a low-pass stereo filter. So what that means is, when I move this down, this cutoff frequency, what that is it's the frequency, or it's the place at which frequencies above that location will be cut off. So right now, it's set where frequencies above 20,000 hertz will be cut off. So I can press the key right now, and I'll hold it. Help with that function. Actually, I'll need to speak, so I won't hold it. But I'll move it here, and you'll see, or you'll hear, how it changes over time. And you see, that filter, it changes which frequencies we're going to allow in. Now, there's one more fun thing that a filter can do for you, and that's resonance. These two tiny knobs here. What resonance is resonance is adding a peak to where that cutoff is. So if I have it set for 2 kilohertz and I put resonance up, there's going to be a 2 kilohertz increase. You may be familiar with something like a 1 kilohertz increase, which I think is something around there. And a 1 kilohertz tone is the standard sensor sound. Beep. So yeah, sorry, that's not too pleasant. But you can see that we're adding that extra harmonic in there. So I'll do it in tandem here by holding one key down. So that's pretty cool. And what if you wanted to move that knob without having to move it? Well, luckily for you, there's a thing called a low frequency oscillator. These oscillators here operate on frequencies that we can hear. So for example, this is probably playing at, I'll guess it's around 300 kilohertz? Or no, it's kilohertz, 300 hertz. I'm going to guess it's 300 hertz. But, oh my goodness. But an LFO operates on less than a hertz. Hertz, less than 1 hertz. So you can't hear it, but you can see its effects. And by the way, a hertz, I'm going to call it a hertz, singular. A hertz is 1 cycle per second. That's all that means. So the waveform is cycling once every second. That's 1 hertz. So if it's 300 hertz, there are 300 cycles happening in the span of 1 second. Very fast. So you just hear it, but you can't really see it. You'll be able to not see, but feel how that changes once I add this LFO to our filter. So you can kind of ignore the patching right now because this isn't something you'll typically have to do in most synthesizers. Mine just happens to be an analog synth where I have to do this. But this will be done in your matrix. So your modulation matrix is where you would do all this patching stuff, but I don't have one of those because my synth is physical. I can touch it and stuff. I hate hiccups. I sound so dumb and silly, and it like invalidates all the stuff I'm saying because I sound so silly, but the human body does what it does, so we're going to deal with it. Yes, so I'll plug in there. So now it's affecting the cutoff in. So if I set it there, you see that little red light there? That little red light is telling you how the LFO is moving. So I'm going to set to 100%. And this LFO now, this low frequency oscillator, is going to essentially be a magic hand that moves this knob for us. And look there. You can see what it's doing with that little LED. And it's the exact same as though we did this. So I plug this back in, you'll see it's basically the same thing. But of course I did it in more of a sine wave fashion, whereas a triangle wave is going to be a little bit more intense. So it's more like a... something like that. But I can lower the rate here at a very slow, very, very slow change. Or very fast change. And I can make it go so fast that it actually enters the audible range. And the LFO becomes an SFO, a standard frequency oscillator. That's not a real term, but it becomes an oscillator, just a regular one. And now you can hear the LFO. Now granted, you're hearing the LFO through another oscillator, which is strange. So the waveform of the oscillator is a triangle wave, which is following a sawtooth wave. This is known as FM synthesis, but we're not going to get into it in this episode. And that may not be technically accurate, but it's basically in the realm of FM synthesis is what this is. So, now, let's see here. So we covered that, LFOs, how those work, they can change your sound. Oh, one last thing, one last thing. So before I go stripping this out, let's plug that back in. So I have it plugged into an attenuator. What that does on my modular synth here, the physical analog modular synth, is it enables me to decrease the intensity of that LFO. So you saw before, it was very much sweeping the whole frequency range. I can make it kind of just go for a small amount. small little range. Just not doing a whole lot. And what's interesting is if I plug this into my pitch instead of my filter, you'll notice this sounds familiar. That's vibrato. Now I have it set up already with the modulation wheel here, where in my modulation section, which we might get into later in this episode, but we'll probably stop at, I think we'll stop at stereo delay. So once we reach the envelope and then stereo delay, I think we'll stop for this episode. So we don't need to go into crazy detail about this synth. There are a lot of parameters here that you're not going to have in your basic synths. So I want to go over something that you'll have. You will typically have in every synth. So you'll know how to operate any synth. So here we go. What are we doing again? That's right. So right here, I have my mod wheel set where you see that flashing there, that LED. That LED is, let me check that out. It's pitch bending it very fast and it's adding vibrato. I can increase that by moving this up. I just fine tune it to where it feels right. And I like to add I like to add a bit of vibrato to my pitch bend when I do it to add that little bit of extra emphasis. So instead of going, I'll go. And it adds a little bit of extra character, which I like in my sound. So, next up, after that, after we have completed our Filter Academy session, congratulations you all. You are now Filter Masters. I am. That's an official thing I can probably definitely legally give you. So feel free to fill your job application out with, Jane Doe, Filter Master. Yeah. Anyway, envelopes. So envelopes are the second last section we're going to go over here. Let me see if I can adjust my mirror. It's kind of hard to see me, so I can't see you too well, so you probably can't see me. There we go. That's going to be good enough, isn't it? All right. There we go. Hi. Envelopes are the way in which your sound is delivered. Think of it like an envelope for mail. It's the same sort of idea. It's how is your sound delivered? So we're going to ignore this filter section for now because it's not enabled because we don't have filter envelope amount in, and that's only for the filter. What we're focused on is this side here, the right side. See that little line? We're focused on this right side. And this is our amplitude envelope. You'll have that in pretty much every synth you find. There are a few exceptions where you have some synths that are designed to be like basses, so they don't really let you change the envelope a whole lot. You might get a decay knob, you might get a release knob, but that's about it. You should have attack, decay, sustain, and release. And I went to sustain before release for a reason, because that's the order in which the sound goes. Now you might ask, well, why isn't sustain then this, then release is this? Well, here's the reason why sustain is this thing and it's not this thing. Sustain is not a time-based thing. Sustain is actually a level thing. It's an amplitude thing. So watch this. If I have everything set down, it'll still make sound, but if I move sustain down, watch this, it lowers the amplitude of that sound. Interesting. But I can bring it back by moving the attack up. So what are these things doing? So I'll move sustain all the way back up. So we're going to start with the very beginning. Attack. What is attack? So attack is how the sound comes in. Right now attack's set to 0. So that means it takes 0 time for the sound to come in. And we look at that and we see it's absolutely correct. The sound comes in as soon as I hit the notes. So let's change that. Let's move it up a little bit. We'll hear it kind of sweep up now. Vroom, vroom, it's not a boom, boom, it's a vroom, vroom. And I can move it even higher. I can move it to the highest value, and you'll really hear this now. It's going to go very quiet, basically nothing, and then slowly amp up. Yeah. So we know what attack does now. It's how long it takes for your sound to come in, and not just come in, but come in to the maximum level. So it'll come in set to a set level, which on this interface you can't control what that level is. Technically, that level is this. It's this mixer level, but you're controlling how fast it gets to that with your attack. Then comes your decay. And your decay tells you when you get to the maximum level of your attack, when it's peaked, it's at the top, it doesn't go any higher. Once it goes to that top where it cannot go any higher, it has to go to the sustain level. Right now the sustain level is already there, so it's not going to do anything. No matter what we do, it's going to sound the same. So what I'll do is I'll move sustain level down to about here. And you'll hear that the sound will come in very quick and then drop down very quickly to the sustain level. Or rather, it'll come in during the attack time and then drop down. So you hear that, it goes vroom, vroom, and it goes down. And the time it takes to go down is the decay. So it's basically the reverse of the attack going to the sustain level. So we'll set that super fast and you'll definitely hear it. Like even... But I can set the decay to be very long. And actually, if it's long enough, you don't need sustain. Because it's sustaining to nothing. But if it's long enough, you just skip the whole sustain process. And it'll decay out on its own. Aha, how about that? But that means you can't really hold notes forever, because sustain does that for you. And it'll go away over time. Now, there's one more thing we haven't touched on, and that's the release. The release is this. Check this out. So, sure, I have the decay go out, and it goes out nice and slow. It eases out, but if I let go, it stops instantly. What if I don't want that? What if I want it to go straight to the sustain level, and we'll keep the sustain level all the way up top. So basically, we're skipping decay. And we want it to go straight from the sustain level to a fade out. And that fade out happens when we let go of the keys. Check this out. So now I have release put up a little bit. And so when I press a key, it stays at the sustain level. And then when I let go, now that I let go, it fades away by itself. I don't have to hold it anymore. Now you'll notice that the envelope is re-triggered when I hit a note. That's because I only have one oscillator functioning. So it's re-triggering the oscillator. Other synths have something called polyphony. I have paraphony here with an A and an R. And yeah, other letters that are not the same as polyphony. But poly meaning many. Para meaning... I don't actually know. But basically it's like I have 4 oscillators that I can independently trigger. Whereas if you have polyphony allows you to play the same oscillator several times at once. That's pretty cool. So then I'll be able to have it play out and then hit another note and it doesn't stop the triggering or doesn't stop the envelope. And I can mimic that by creating a secondary oscillator here with oscillator 2, and we'll set it to 4-voice polyphony. So now 1's going to trigger, then 2's going to trigger, and you'll hear that. Something strange happened there. Hold up. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. I was confused. I was wrong. So, you learn things every day. It's fine. When you trigger something on the Moog Matriarch in particular, because of the polyphony, there's still just one amplitude envelope. You don't have multiple amplitude envelopes. You do on a polyphonic instrument. because it's not the oscillator that's re-triggering, it's the amplitude envelope that's re-triggering. This is constantly happening regardless. I'm just choosing to let it out via the attack. So if I have a very long attack, I can press the note and nothing will really happen until it comes in. So I think that's a good rundown of how the envelope generators operate. So let's get into stereo delay. The final thing, most synthesizers will give you some fun extra little feature. In this case, my fun little extra feature is that I have stereo delay, a little time-based effect, as opposed to something like a filter, which is your amplitude, your dynamic effect. It controls the dynamics, it controls the loudness of things. In this case, the loudness of higher frequencies. So that's fun. We turn oscillator 2 off there. There we go. Back to our standard boring sawtooth wave. For those of you who love sawtooth waves, I'm terribly sorry for offending you, but it is what it is. So let's get into it. Stereo delay is a fun time-based effect where you get essentially 3 versions of the sound. You have the original version of the sound, which is this one. And then with stereo delay, focus on stereo. Both ends of your speakers, your monitors here, or in your case, you're probably watching this on a mobile phone, so your, what is it called? Earpiece microphone and your speaker microphone are your left to right channels. So let's try that out. Let's put the mix up a little bit. I'll put feedback up as well so we get different things. And listen to this. Whoa! That's wild. So I have my original signal, but then I have 2 other versions of the signal that play out. And then the dissonance that happens with them triggering at different times creates a spatial effect that's really cool. I can even change how fast that spatial effect happens. I can make it go really slow or really fast. But I think it's cool slow, isn't it? A little bit faster. There we go. Ping pong here is a little setting that allows it to bounce between the 2 headphone speaker thingies, so the left and right channels. That's fun. You'll hear the difference here. So if you have headphones on, you'll definitely hear the difference. Versus. Maybe not definitely, because I could tell that was a little difficult, but I could hear it. There's a difference between it mimics it, but it's kind of like dual mono, versus it mimics it, but it's in stereo. So you do hear it bounce between the 2. Oh, we just hit the camera. Sorry about that. So you can mess with these effects, these little parameters. Spacing is different. So one is faster than the other in terms of time. So here the left channel is going by more than the right channel is. Is that right? I think I'm not understanding it right. There's so many different sounds happening. But, and feedback here on the matriarch is how many of those repeats you have. And in fact, you can push it up to a point where it comes back on itself. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I had a lab instructor, Lee Coombs, show, if you take the, where's it at? It's in the back of the matriarch here. So where's that purple? I'll find it here. And you take feedback in, if I can find that. Oh wait, it's right here. Okay. Because there's a secondary feedback. So take that feedback in. That's right, and I plug it into the back here for the mod wheel, if I can find that. Where's the mod wheel? There it is, mod wheel out. Oh, I'm gonna mess with the, oh no. Sorry there, messed with the mirror. Wow, we'll fix that real quick. Okay, we're gonna have to probably deal without it. Okay, I'm kind of here, hello. So now, when I move my, I'll turn this off. Now when I move my mod wheel up, it'll increase the feedback. That's pretty cool. That's pretty wild, isn't it? And now, even further, check this out. I can multiply these signals. So I have it going into a utility port now. then into my feedback. And then what I do is I take the wave from an LFO. So take like the triangle wave out and I'll plug that in there. And we'll attenuate it a little bit. So we'll make it a little bit less intense. But now you got two things going in there, and you got two things that'll control it here. So now, let's see, there we go. Quite fun. So, let me fix this real quick. If we can. Oh no, it's like, oh goodness. We may have to deal without seeing me for the rest of this episode. I have to find a, okay, yeah, unfortunately I'm gone for the rest of the episode. I'm terribly sorry. You don't get to see my face. But we're basically done, so congratulations. You passed the course. Good job. I don't know how long this took. It looks like, oh wow, is that real? Logic Pro is reporting that it's been 30 minutes. That seems a lot longer than it really was, but okay. You've passed my 30-minute course on synthesis. Good job. Thank you for watching. So, yes, if you enjoyed this video, if you think of that, it really helped you, what would help me is if you hit that little subscribe button and tell YouTube, hey, this content was pretty good. I enjoyed it. And then after hitting that, you can hit the join button to become a C2A control voltage, just like this LFO that controls your filter or your oscillator or your feedback. You can control C2A music. How about that? That's pretty cool, isn't it? So, yes, also you get access to the Discord server that we got going on for C2A control voltages only, plus you'll get early access to videos. So when I post a video, I post it for members ASAP, and then later throughout the days, the rest of y'all will get it. So yeah. If you've got any questions or comments, ideas for future videos, please do leave them in the comment section below and I'll get back to them. So yeah. Hope you all take care of yourselves. God be with you and goodbye, YouTube.